Joining us now, Caroline Lucas. She's executive director of the Coalition of Kaiser Permanente Unions in the wake of a strike that took place a couple of weeks ago for 3 days. 75,000 Kaiser Permanente workers in multiple states around the country. And Caroline, it appears that strike was about as successful as you can get. Will you walk us through why you were on strike and how Kaiser Permanente has reacted?
Absolutely, Sam. Thanks for having me on. You know, there were a lot of factors that went into the strike, and I would say that overall, we had a huge turnout for the strike line. We had in most areas between 70 and 90% of frontline healthcare providers who were out on the strike line. And I think the power of that turnout, the level of frustration expressed by folks who were out front of the hospitals, really forced Kaiser executives to finally listen to their workers about the severity of the crisis we've been talking about for over a year.
And so where are we? I'm a little bit confused as to like where we are in the process of the contract, because at one point, there was and maybe this is still active. Basically, the unions have said, we're going to go out again if we can't really wrap this up by November 1st. So give me a sense of where things stand right now.
We are done nationally. So we have successfully concluded bargaining. Last Friday was an amazing day. Around 3 a.m. that morning, we reached tentative agreements on all kinds of topics that were still outstanding. At this point in time, the step that's occurring starting today actually is ratification. That's where our frontline union members vote on our tentative agreements and say, yep, this is what I want in my contract. That process concludes November 3rd, and then we have a 4-year agreement from then on.
And can you give us a sense? I mean, presumably now the membership is looking at the terms of these deals. Can you give us some of the top lines as to what you guys were able to negotiate?
The fight has been around staffing from the beginning, and you know, we've had members for over a year now asking to be part of a process to figure out long-term solutions around staffing. Staffing continued to be the single biggest priority throughout our negotiations. And now that we're looking at ratifying this contract, as I talk to people who are excited to see a successful conclusion, the biggest thing I hear is I can take a day off. You know, in a couple of months from now, we'll have the staff we need that I can feel good about being on vacation and not have to worry about my coworker pulling doubles to cover my absence. So people, I think, are relieved that Kaiser executives finally listens to their cry for help and that there's a path forward that at the end of this will allow them to have some respite.
I mean, broadening out. I mean, we've followed many nurses strike in particular. We have some in, I think it's in Newark, that are on strike now for like day 75 or 80, somewhere up there. We followed the Worcester nurses strike that went on for hundreds of days, I guess a couple of years ago now. But this question of staffing, how much more does the idea of it being about staffing? Because at that point, there's an analog, it seems to me, when teachers go on strike, and part of the things that they're fighting for are better facilities for the kids, for their students, improving the sort of the people that they're working with and for, in a way. I wonder how much that animates the sort of the solidarity and the determination of people who are going on strike when they know, because you know, they get a day off, but they also know that part of the problem is that they're not capable of giving the same level of care to people on that second or third or fourth shift that they're pulling in a row.
That is 100% it. And I think the commonality between teachers and frontline healthcare providers really is a profession about caring. It really is a teamwork profession. And the folks who are drawn to that kind of work are really people who are used to advocating and doing things for other people and with other people. And I think that that means that things like patient care or student needs resonate in a really personal way for these folks. And so the idea of seeing patients suffering, and to your point of not just our members have been pulling doubles and working 10, 20 hours a week of overtime, but the other part of that is folks on the lower paid end of the spectrum are frequently working second and third jobs as well. So not only are they working for Kaiser Permanente and trying to show up to do the best possible job they can there for patients, a lot of times they're going home, they're doing Lyft, they're doing Uber, they're working at Target night shift, right, to make ends meet. A lot of folks, we're in very high cost of living markets where Kaiser Permanente is. A lot of folks are also living several hours away from their Kaiser facility they work in. And so between a 1, 2, 3 hour commute every day and a second job and overtime at Kaiser, a lot of folks told us stories about literally sleeping for 3 hours between jobs in Kaiser parking lots. And so the exhaustion that creates for months on end, it's really, I can't imagine the impact mentally and physically that has on folks. And so to then be able to show up to give their best care, their best selves at work, it's traumatizing.
Going back a little bit in the history of like what led us to this point in terms of this contract, this was actually 2 weeks ago was the second strike in the past year. Is that not right? Do I have that correct?
We picketed in July. So there was a picket that we engaged in July. Kaiser Permanente has seen an uptick in strikes from other unions within Kaiser at previous points in their negotiations. So you might be thinking of a year ago, there was an open-ended strike of their engineers. 6 months before that, their mental health providers went on strike for 9 weeks. So Kaiser overall as an organization has seen an uptick in strikes. This was our first time striking in 25 years at Kaiser.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, what I just like when I see like a 3-day strike and they basically come to the table and offer everything that they are. I mean, do you have a sense that like management is, I mean, I don't want you to speak for other unions or other just, sort of broadly across these things, but there just seems to be that management across different industries seems to be completely blindsided by the discontent of their workers and even more, I think to the point, the solidarity that's grown amongst their workers. I mean, it feels like I saw that in the writer's strike. I'm seeing that like even with the producers are just assuming that the actors are going to come back in. The car CEOs are out there now basically begging, please let the strike end. Like they didn't like it's somehow unfair or they didn't know, or, I mean, what's going on in from your perspective?
Sam, it's so fascinating. I think those of us who live in real life have friends and family who are struggling, who, have done everything right, went to school for a degree we told them was valuable, like a healthcare degree, are working full time and can't pay their bills. And that kind of anxiety in the sense that I've done everything right. And if one thing goes wrong, I'm homeless. I lose my car. I can't pay for my kids, after school activities. I think that folks who are executives who are running these companies are just so out of touch with that level of fear in the working class in America right now, that there is no safety net anymore. There is no margin for error. And that every year, despite working really, really hard, they're falling farther behind. And I know that my friends and family, that the frontline healthcare providers I talk with, viscerally feel that every day. And I think that creates a kind of solidarity and camaraderie with folks who are in that same boat with them. And it creates this fundamental disconnect between them and the folks that they see making $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year off of their labor.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch. Well, congratulations on a successful strike. We'll find out about the ratification, I guess, in the next couple of days. Caroline Lucas, Executive Director of the Coalition of Kaiser Permanente Unions. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. What a pleasure.